The topic for today is how to write a cover letter that gets your Canada visa approved. I'm going to share a personal experience which led me to how to write a cover letter, or the importance of cover letter in the Immigration Canada. It was written in 2007 for a former diplomat from Nigeria, which we invited as a guest speaker for a lecture. So the first thing you need to know is, what is a cover letter? It's a letter of explanation of the totality of the totality of the information and documentation that was presented in your application. So the first thing you need to do is to structure your cover letter. You have to structure it in a way that is easy to understand and is communicating on your behalf. Like we emphasize that there is no interview in Canadian immigration process. For a temporary visa, they're not going to invite you for a one-on-one interview. So they assume that your document should speak for you. So you have to ensure that the document is speaking for you, and you have to anticipate most of the questions that they will likely ask in your situation. So that's going to make it more easier for the officer to make a decision. The first thing you need to do, which I did in 2007 when I invited a former diplomat to Canada for a lecture, is that we introduce the applicant. What led to this was that the application was refused. I was not the one that submitted the first application. Even though I requested to process it, but because they have their own protocol department that facilitates visa for his travel. So they did it, but they refused, even though he has been to probably over 60 countries at that time. But that does not matter, because it still not follow the unique Canadian procedure. So the first thing before I go to the process itself is to first use the letter excuse me, as an example. They requested for a visa, that's visitor's visa, to come for, I think it was just probably 3 or 5 days, if I could recall. And the event was in June. So I think it's end of June or towards the end of June. So it was submitted earlier, and the result came in it came on May 28, 2007. That's about 19 years now. So the refusal letter, not to bore us with most of what is written, dear applicant, as usual. The generic refusal letter, they itemize 3 main things. 1, I'm not satisfied that you have sufficient funds, including income or assets, to carry out your stated purpose in going to Canada, or to maintain yourself while in Canada, and to effect your departure. So if you can see now from those from the statement, they've identified 3 main issues from the team. The first thing was the purpose of Canada was not legitimate as a concern for the officer. Secondly, is not considered to come to Canada with sufficient fund, meaning that the officer did not believe that he has enough financial capability to sustain himself while in Canada. I think it's just for 5 days. And I do not consider you to be a genuine temporary resident. So that's 3 main concerns that the officer has raised. The second reason was your host in Canada has not demonstrated that he or she has sufficient funds to support your visit. So that's another reason for refusal. The last one was that you have not satisfied me that you met the requirement of Regulation 179 that you will leave Canada at the end of your temporary period. If you are authorized to stay, in reaching this decision, I consider your ties to your country of residence or citizenship balance against factor which might motivate you to stay in Canada. This was almost a 70-year-old person that he was saying he will have motivation to stay back in Canada. And when this happened, it became sensational because it went to the highest level of the government in Canada. In Nigeria. I think it was the Minister of Foreign Affairs was Ojoma Drake or so. And we discussed it, and I told them that, well, I advised that they should let me submit the application, but against that, they did it, and it was refused. It's not because he's going to stay back as a 70-year-old in Canada, but it's just because he has not met the requirement. The officer should not be left guessing, which I believe was the main reason. It was not articulated. That's when I started using the cover letter, because we have good intention, we have all it takes, but we could not communicate to the officer properly. So we started with writing the minister because the event was so close that it's going to be a big disappointment. So I wrote to the Minister of Immigration. That was on 1st of June because it was refused on the 28th. I don't know if it was a weekend or so. So we swung into action. I wrote and raised some concern with the Minister of Immigration then. And she replied. She said, "Dear Adeni Itemowo, I'm replying to your letter of June 1, 2007, addressed to the Honorable Dan Finley, Minister of Citizenship and Immigration, concerning the refusal of a temporary resident visa to so-so person. In Immigration and Refugee Protection Act, gives Canada visa officer the exclusive authority." You see what she was emphasizing? Exclusive authority to issue a TRP and set out certain basic requirements. Applicant must be in good health. That's one. And have no criminal record. Second, they must possess the necessary travel documents and sufficient funds to support themselves during their visit and to pay for transportation home. Visa officer must be satisfied that the applicant are not planning to remain in Canada after an authorized stay. In order to determine this later requirement, visa officer will take into account such factors as the applicant's ties to homeland, employment, family, future plan, and reason for visiting. So they've emphasized that these are what we should have done that we did not do. That is the purpose of the cover letter. They went further to say the onus rests solely with the applicant to establish that they meet this requirement. They are given the opportunity to present their case by providing documentary evidence and any other relevant information to support their application. A decision is made only after all factors have been considered. Unless the visa officer is completely satisfied that the applicant is a genuine visitor, a TRP cannot be issued. So they are still deferring to the decision of the visa officer. Even the minister is still deferring to the decision of the visa officer, that this visa officer have the sole discretion to make decision. Hosts in Canada often make sincere assurances that the applicant will return home. However, they are ultimately powerless to compel the departure of guests who choose not to leave. For this reason, visa officers must form an opinion about the visitor's intention independent of the host assurances. So they don't care what you provide, that you are going to host them and they are going to return. They are talking to the applicant. In realizing that the denial of a TRP came as a great disappointment to you and Chief so, nevertheless, I assure you that his circumstances were fully considered. It is not our intention to deny persons the privilege of visiting relatives in Canada, but it is our responsibility to ensure that all visitors are bona fide and will leave after the temporary stay. If that's the conclusion, if so person situation changes substantively, you see the emphasis. It's not just change. That's why you don't just reapply after refusal. They emphasize that if it change, if so person's situation changes substantively, or if there is an additional information that was not previously considered, he is welcome to reapply at any time. The new application will be considered on its own merit, and unless all requirements are met, no assurances of success can be given. Thank you for taking time to write to the minister inquiry division with the name signed. Okay, so this is what prompted the importance of cover letter. Since 2007, and then I started using cover letter to explain any temporary application I submit to the embassy, and it's been a good story. This refusal was overturned. They called His Excellency then on phone, invited him to the embassy, apologized, and gave him the visa, and he was able to attend the program in Canada. But it was very costly because there was no online application at that time. We spent a lot of money on gathering information and then using courier back and forth and phone call to overcome the refusal. So that's why I kept emphasizing that all those stress are preventable once you are able to use a cover letter to articulate your intention. Don't assume. So what we did was that we introduced the applicant. His citizenship is a foreign national from Nigeria, former diplomat, and coming for a lecture in Canada, and he's going to stay for, was it 3 or 5 days, and the accommodation arrangement and all that was introduced at the beginning. Then I justify his purpose to travel to Canada because he has extensive experience in the topic area chosen and the field, and there are a lot of attendants that are waiting to hear from him on one-on-one. There was no Zoom at that time, even though we have, there was one that we used at that time, but not Zoom. So, but many people are waiting for him to speak to them on live and one-on-one. So I was able to justify the purpose of travel to Canada to present a lecture that is relevant to his field of operation. Third, I explained his travel itinerary, including flight, accommodation. We booked an hotel. We presented the booking, the evidence. We provided the ticket, and we provided some of the places he might visit before the lecture and after the lecture. But I think it's a one-day lecture, but he was coming 3 days ahead of the lecture, and he's going to return maybe 2 days after. So we book accommodation in Niagara Falls that is going to stay while in Niagara Falls, and other places he wants to visit, and some of the Nigerian community that are going to host him just for a visit, they were able to support, give us all the letter of assurances that he's going to visit them as well, just to meet and greet. Also, I explained his employment and business and economic ties in Nigeria. That was one of the problems, because he has just retired as a former diplomat, and he was on board of various enterprise. But the problem was that he did not state his employment engagement, or just put retire. Retire means you are not doing anything. But I was able to articulate, listed most of the board. He was an active member or chairman of this board, that board, here and there. And then his own business that people are managing for him. We're able to get some evidences to show that even though he's retired, but he's still actively engaged business-wise, employment-wise, depending on how you want to classify that. And we provided evidences and some of the transaction in the business, and that's fly. Furthermore, the other one that I remember I was able to do was that I provided strong financial capacity with statement of banks from Nigeria, his own statement of bank, his business statement, bank statement, and then as the host, I provided the bank statement that shows above and beyond the amount there, and also stated that he's not going to spend on accommodation, on feeding in Canada, even transportation, and that all that has been made, the arrangement has been made. Even the rental car that is going to use, we provided the booking, the timeline of the booking, and we provided all that to support the application. So they saw a proper planning where he's going to stay, how he's going to move in Canada with all his itinerary, and how he's going to return to the airport for departure. Furthermore, we demonstrated his family plan arrangement in Nigeria. He has various events every now and then. He's just taking 3 or 5 days to rest from his busy activity, and then all the lineup event for the year, and the one that he has attended beginning of the year, because I think it was in June. So we were able to get some of the activity as either chair or participated as a busy person for the last 5 months, January to May. And furthermore, his activity from June, which will be July to December, because it was towards the end of June that the activity is going to take place in Canada. So we're able to provide some of the engagement that is going to go. I think he was still part of the advisory committee of a particular state in Nigeria. So we were able to get that and then get some letter from the government to support that. And his properties, his ties, his shares, and all other things that is more viable financially in Nigeria was able to be provided. Fortunately for him, the shares, the money market has not crashed in Nigeria at that time. I think it crashed in 2008 and it was in 2007. He even have a fishery project that were able to provide all those evidences at that time. So they saw strong ties to Nigeria and the officer gave him the benefit of doubt. They invited him and they apologized, but they let him know that this application was better than the old one and they were able to grant it. So at the end of the day, we summarize and attach relevant document, like I said, that was able to speak to the mind of the officer. So if you are talking or you are applying for temporary visa, because the discretion is with the visa officer, even the best application can be refused. You need to put a cover letter to speak to the mind of the officer and anticipate all the likely concern, especially in his own case. He just said employment retired. Retired means nothing. It doesn't mean you are not doing anything. But because you are retired, you still need to state what you are doing. So if you just put it in like you did in the first instance, they will refuse because you have no employment. But because you are retired, doesn't mean you are not farming, you are not trading, you are not a distributor. Even though you are not running it one-on-one, but you engage employee in doing that, but you still need to demonstrate what you are doing, because their mindset is if you are not engaged, that is a motivation to stay back in Canada. So they always look at the ties, they look at your intention, your age, and since you are retired, you have nothing to lose. So you have to explain. That's the purpose of the cover letter. The cover letter will help you out in stating your intention, because there is no one-on-one interview. If you are one-on-one interview, the officer might ask you anything that is not clear. But the onus is on you now to have anticipated any likely question, any likely ambiguity that they are not sure about, and address it ahead of time, so that the writing will have spoken for you. In his own case too, we were able to explain his bank statement, how he's been paid, the money that was deposited to him from the bank. We analyzed everything, that at least on an average month, his income is coming up to so amount, and then the government pension that he was receiving. So these are all things that the cover letter will do for you, that the application and the document will not do, because most of the applicants will only fill the application form, tick all the checklist, and attach all the necessary documents, but the officer don't have enough time to look at everything line by line. The only thing that make it easy is for you to point him or her to the purpose of the document you attach and explain ahead of time, especially the bank statement now, which is the main issue in the Canadian visa application now. The era of getting proof of financial capability from the bank has gone. They are going to look at that bank statement line by line to justify your activity, your income, and your business activity, to see how this money comes in, how it goes out. Unlike before that, they always just put the required amount, that you have the total amount in your account. This time around, they are not going to first go to how much you have. They are going to look at line by line, how much is coming in and what is the justification. What are you doing? That are you a business person that you get a contract and they send the mobilization fee, or are you an employee, or you have savings, you have shares in money market, farming, and all this? So you have to make sure it's structured, and that the letter will help you to do that. So that's what works with the help of cover letter. That's why it's more important now than before. Unlike American embassy, that they will call you one-on-one and ask you any clarification. Canada don't do that. So your responsibility is to make sure the cover letter emphasize that. If you go back to the refusal letter, you see what the officer was expecting. So he has given us an insight and we're able to follow it line by line. The first thing you need to do, which I always tell people, is to emphasize that you are in good health and you have no criminal record. That should be your introduction, because the purpose of the Immigration and Refugee Protection Act is that no criminal should be allowed to Canada, and then anybody that is health status will affect another person should not be allowed to come to Canada. And the only way you can do that is to have stated that and affirm that from the beginning in your application, that you are in good health and you have no criminal record. Even if you have criminal record in the past, it has been pardoned and you are coming as a criminal-free person to Canada. And that's why the visa officer are always, because they are gatekeepers, they need to keep you out if you don't meet two of these objectives. And that's what many people don't do, because there is no awareness that is very important. You believe, or you are sincere that you have no criminal record and you are in good health, but the officer is not an angel. He doesn't know your mind. So until you speak or you affirm to them, they will not know what you have or what you don't have. So that's the essence of doing this, and emphasize the importance of cover letter. So in any application, always use cover letter to state your purpose, to state the document you provided, and to tell them what you want them to know, and to demonstrate that you are a genuine visitor that is coming for a short period of time and plan to leave at the end of your visit. So if you have any other topic you want me to speak on, I will do that, although I got some suggestion from the comment. I will work on that. I will do that next week. I think I might, what I'm thinking or suggesting to do, which is more of the suggested topic next Sunday, will probably be on misrepresentation, because many people have been denied based on misrepresentation, either knowingly or unknowingly. But Canada don't accept any excuse when it comes to misrepresentation. So I might consider speaking on misrepresentation and the consequence next week. Thank you for your time. Help me to share and like so other people can benefit from it. Thank you and good night.